We have done, I want to say 11 high school outreach programs where we'll have, at Emmanuel they'll have like a trauma Thursday or a trauma Tuesday, and we'll have every department that if you had a trauma situation happen, they'll have an ambulance outside, they'll show you what that looks like inside the unit so that way you know what's going on. They'll bring you to the ER, they'll show you OR, they'll show you the laboratory. One time I had a box of blood and it was in our cooler that we have, and it's supposed to be temperature monitored, and I had an actual unit of blood that was in there, and I'm thinking, okay, I've seen this a million times. I've handed that blood off to someone before, and then I've had to take it and help them to the floor because they fainted. It's like, oops, I should have thought about that. And like I've told a bunch of people, it's always guys that faint. Guys and blood just don't mix, it seems like. Yeah. It's interesting too when you have certain people that are, they're used to getting their blood drawn all the time. All the time, all the time. I've had people that have had tattoos head to toe. You come in to draw their blood and they start crying because you're going to draw their blood. And you're like, really? Okay. They've had people that have had the question of, can you go through a tattoo when you draw blood? You shouldn't probably do that technically because you're piercing blood and you could be introducing it, but it's such a minimal amount. And I think, well, don't tattoo yourself in certain spots. I have drawn in spots that you won't get a tattoo ever. But you have to get a doctor's order to do that. I've drawn women that have been 2 minutes from having a baby. That's exciting. I think it's exciting. I have 4 kids. I was like, hey man, we're having a kid. Awesome. Then they look at me, they're like, you're not the one doing this, buddy. It's like, yeah, I know. I usually stay north of the border. It's a fun job. There's a lot of variation. You never really know what you're going to walk into. There's a lot of duties that you have that seem like, okay, why am I doing this? Why do I have to learn this all the time? That kid with the spinal fluid, we hadn't done one in probably 3 weeks, and it was me, a new girl that had just started maybe a week or 2 prior. So she knew what to do, but she didn't know our process. Like we have kind of like, when this happens, I'll take on these things, you take on those, and we just knocked it out. 45 minutes, that was it. We had it good to go. I always talk about the lab kind of being sort of it's a little bit of a marriage when you're working in the lab, because there's not 10 of you in a lab, there's 3 or 4 of you. So everyone kind of knows their part, everyone kind of has an unspoken, you know what you're going to do and I know what I'm going to do, and we do lean processes, which means that we've scoped out all of the different variations that we can do things and said, this is how we're going to do this. So if I were to start drawing or doing whatever test I'm doing over here and I get to point 6 and there's a 10-step section, if I have to leave and go to ER, someone else can come right in at 7 and do 8, 9, and 10 and do totally fine. We identify a lot of processes in the lab that are failures where we can try to minimize those things. What are our obstacles? What are the worries that we have if someone that's been there for 30 years suddenly leaves? Well, we're used to that because we have a lot of lab personnel that move on. They get something better, they move to another area. We have recently been taking on travelers with we have a Filipino, I don't know if you want to call them like just like an agency that has a med tech site in the Philippines. They go through all their school, then we bring them to America and they work in our labs for 2 or 3 years. And then they bring their families over and it's awesome and they're hard workers and they know what they're doing. But what's really crazy is that you get a Midwestern attitude and you get a foreign attitude and you get a coastal attitude all in the same room, and it's like, all right, you can kind of see how people think and how they interact and stuff, and it's pretty cool. I've had doctors from all over the world come through and be physicians, and I've collaborated with them on certain projects. IT projects are a big one. We've got 2 doctors right now that are major IT players that are helping me develop a way to utilize tests a little bit more better. Instead of someone ordering up a CBC every single morning, they're going to figure out, well, do we really need to do this? And if another doctor comes in and orders it, we can say, hey, one's already been done. Do we need to do this again? I'm trying to keep costs down and trying to keep utilization down. It's a benefit for all, but it's a development. Thanks for staying awake, everybody. For a Monday.